Hello, this is Gary at Jack Raven Bushcraft. Thank you for watching our video. So today I wanted to look at fault finding for bow drilling. So you may recall that kind of a month or so ago, maybe a little longer, I did some videos on bow drilling. So there's a video around the component parts of a bow drill set, different approaches to making those parts, different materials you can use to make those component parts. Then I did a video on actually making up a set. So I collected up some sycamore to make a baseboard and a spindle and some hornbeam for a bearing block and a what else did we, a hazel bow. And then I did another video, a third video around bedding in that set, carving out the notch and getting an ember. So as I say, this time I want to talk a little bit about some fault finding, so some common issues, if you like, that you might need to remedy. And I'm going to kind of divide it up into two broad categories. So one is around posture and the other is around materials. So we're going to start with posture, and so it's probably worth a little refresher on that. So I'm right-handed. I'm going to kneel on my right knee here. I've got the more or less the ball of my left foot on the board, and it's going to spindle's going to sit in there, so there's not a lot of a gap in between my foot and the board. I want my leading leg here, my left leg, to be more or less vertical. To adjust that, I move my right knee. So if I bring my right knee in, tilts that way. If I bring my right knee back, my leg is tilting that direction. And then my left hand is going to come around my left arm, my watch strap wrapped in against my shin there, so that's in nice and tight, that's bracing it. And then if I just put a spindle in here, right, so I want the bearing block here, the hole in the bearing block, to be in the center of my hand, so it's that kind of feeling that I want to get. Right, so that can go in there, that's like that, and so that's my kind of base position, and then my arm's kind of going to go backwards and forwards like so. So that's how I should be. So I want to just now go over a few things where that can sometimes go a little bit wrong. So first one up I want to look at again is this back leg and the impact that that has. First up, if my rear leg is too close in, then I get this happening. So you see it still works, but the spindle is always leaning forward and there's always the chance that it's going to pop out backwards. Because the opposite of that, if I've got my leg too far back, then again you can see the angle there and the spindle is like that, and again is a really good chance that the thing's going to come out. So getting yourself upright so that your spindle is vertical is really important. Another really common issue that I find when I'm teaching bow drilling is the string rising up the spindle as people are going. So that is often about posture, nearly always about posture. I'm just going to resharpen my spindle here a second. And it is more often than not to do with this bowing arm. So my recommendation is that you try to get the movement coming from your shoulder, so more like a soldier marching, as opposed to this, which is kind of a steam engine or a boxer punching. And quite often with string riding up, it's because there's a little flick at the end. So the arm comes like that and then rides up. So it's that one. The other one is because people want to have a look down and see what's going on with your ember. So when you do that, so you look down and that changes your entire posture, and you look back up again and that brings your arm up. So what I'm going to suggest you do in that case is kind of just pick a point on the ground in front of you and look at that. Avoid looking down on your hearthboard, and it's really tempting to take a look down to see what's going on. But as I say, you do that and it can subtly shift your body position and cause the bow to go up, the string to go up, and then it just pings off. So this is what I'm looking for, so nice and straight. But as I say, the common error is look down and all of a sudden you can see my back arm here has lifted up because I've taken a look down, and that's kind of exaggerated. But even a much smaller look, you still get the movement there with the bow. The other common one is this. So lifting your hand up on this backstroke, and that causes the string to ride up the spindle, and sooner or later it's going to pop off. Next I want to look at some potential issues with materials. So first up, your hearthboard and carving the notch into your hearthboard. It's really important that you get your knife work right here, and that you get that notch so that it's about 45 degrees and it goes in just short of the middle of the hole. So I've got a few here that I've carved out. So this one, it's about your 45 degrees and it's about got into the center of the hole. You can often test it out. The tip of your knife is about 45 degrees and should fit in there. However, this one, the notch goes too far, so it goes past the center of the hole. The likely result of that is that a nipple will form on the end of the spindle. It's not the end of the world, but it means you have to do more drilling, drag your arm backwards and forwards more than you might otherwise need to. This next one, this is the notch there. It's probably closer to 90 degrees than 45 degrees. Couple of things can potentially happen there. We can get the spindle can just ping out the back there really quite easily. The other thing is you've got an awful big notch to fill up with powder. Remember guys, it's a two-stage process to get the ember. The first is to get the powder, so grind away the powder to form, and the second is to pick up the pace a little bit to generate the heat so that it coalesces. If you've got a notch sort of that size, that's a big notch to fill up with powder, so you're going to be drilling for ages. This next one, really tiny notch. So what does that mean? So essentially you could grind away, there's not going to be an awful lot of powder forming in that notch, so your ember is going to be tiny. This last one, we've got a notch that is off center. So what's likely to happen there is that instead of your powder dropping down into your notch, it's going to build up all around the outside there. So again, it will eventually fill up, but you're going to have to bow for ages, so you're just making life that much more difficult for yourself. So, you know, get yourself a piece of wood, sit in the back garden, sit in your house, practice carving these notches so you can get a good 45-degree notch, nice straight edges going in almost to the center of your hole. So I haven't got an ember pan underneath. I'm not particularly trying to create an ember at this stage. It's more just to demonstrate what can happen with these notches out of place. So this one, the notch goes in well past the center, so I'm likely to get a nipple forming on the end of my spindle. So I'll give it a few spins backwards and forwards here so that you can take a little look at what's going on. And so already we can start to see there's a very clear nipple forming on the end here. So next one along, I've got this massive great big notch. I'll pop my spindle in there. Like I say, two things are likely to happen. One is that the thing might just pop out like that, so it's not even going to stay in there because of the size of the notch. Even if you do try to get it or manage to get it to stay in, you've got an awful lot of work to do. So our next one, we've got this very small notch. So you can see it works well enough. Plenty of smoke cut off, plenty of powder forming, but maybe I should have used an ember pan. This might produce an ember, but you can see what's going on there. It's really tiny. Now on to the last hole where the notch is off centre. And you can see the powder is building up around the outside of the notch and not dropping down where we would like it to be. So another really common issue that we find is squeaking. So this horrible noise that comes from your bow drill set. So I'm just going to see if I can replicate that. That noise. So when you get that squeaking, so the first thing first, just stop, because any energy that you expend when you've got a squeaking set is wasted energy. What often happens when you get that squeaking noise is that as your powder forms, it vibrates across your ember pan. It doesn't actually clump together, it doesn't coalesce, it doesn't create the ember. So if you hear that noise, stop. The most likely thing that it's going to be is that your string's too loose. So when I hold my bow, I hold it, in fact if I hold it like that, I hold it like this with my fingers just wrapped around the string. So if I get a little bit of squeaking, the first thing I do is just try to clasp the string there, just squeeze it down a little bit to tighten it up. So I'll give that a go now. If that doesn't work, then what I'll do is stop, tighten up the string. So pinch that now, and our squeak is gone. So remember that one, guys. If you're hearing it squeak, just stop. Next up, I just want to talk about a phenomenon known as shouldering or shouldering out, and that's basically when your end of your drill here, sat in your bearing block, it wears down to an extent that it basically ends up the same size as the hole in your bearing block there, and it just literally stops. So of course that quite often happens at that last bit of the process, just as you need to pick up the pace a little bit. So for that one, make sure you go for this really long taper on your spindle. It's going to add an ember pan under here, because this time I do want to have a little look at the powder. So I've mentioned this a few times now, the powder that's produced. In my previous video I spoke a little bit about the powder being black and granular. Sometimes it isn't, sometimes it's just it's kind of a brown colour. And what that is likely to mean is that you're not applying enough downward pressure. Now, it's kind of a Goldilocks zone with this. If you apply too much downward pressure, then it will polish up. If you don't apply enough, you're likely to be producing powder that is brown, so not charred, not going to coalesce and form your ember. So I'm just going to try here to create a little bit of powder that's kind of a pale brown colour, just so that you can have a little look at it. And so you can see there, the powder, instead of being black, is just kind of a pale brown colour. And as I say, that tells us that there's not quite enough downward pressure. So this time what I'm going to go for is that it's too much downward pressure, so that we can see what happens. I might also get a bit of shouldering out going on the top here because of the taper of my spindle. I'm really kind of pushing quite hard on this now, to the extent that it's really, you can see it's sticking there, it doesn't want to turn. So part of that is because I'm pushing too hard, but the other part is this shouldering out thing. You can see that's kind of just stuck in there now. So the end of this is really quite polished up. It's sort of almost like a mirror type finish. So we'll just move the camera and get a little close up so you can see what that looks like. So that is polished up and direct result of too much downward pressure. So hopefully guys, a few things there that might help you with your bow drilling. Remember, when you do bow drilling, I said this right at the very beginning, you need to be relaxed in your body and calm in your mind. So if you find yourself getting frustrated, take a little break from it, make yourself a cup of tea, have a little think about what's going on, run through this list of potential faults, and hopefully you'll be able to work out what it is that you just need to tweak that little bit to help you get your ember. So yep, thanks for watching the videos guys. Make sure that you don't miss out by signing up, subscribing to our YouTube channel. In the meantime, stay safe, take care.